Hi everyone, I've got Kate Thornton-Bousfield this morning from the Association of Physical Education, the CEO, no doubt, and really grateful to Kate for spending some time with us today about talking of the benefits of physical education in our curriculum. So, thanks very much, Kate. Maybe you could just start off by letting us know why you think physical education should be on all of our curriculums.
Firstly, thanks for having me, Chris. Good morning to all of you today. So physical education, it is the only subject on the national curriculum that we actually develop the human person through a physical being and a physical presence through a curriculum that is all around movement. It is that only subject that does that, and it needs to have just as much time on the curriculum as any other subjects, including some of our more academic ones, including maths, English, and science.
And obviously, a lot of independent schools can, run any curriculum they wish to, and a lot of independent schools don't do physical education, but they do games. So, why would you say to them they should be running a physical education program along with their games program?
It's a great question, and it's a question I am asked a lot of the time. And actually, with my state sector hat on, it's something we're battling at the moment in terms of what the curriculum has become. And
Mm.
if I was to say to you that we know independent schools tend to do their own thing, they have that free reign to do so, but we do know some do follow national curriculum. And I can really be honest and say, over the course of like the 20, 25 years that the curriculum has evolved, I would say now we've got a very much sport heavy curriculum where the outcomes are sport, but we know sport is not for every single one of our young people in our lessons. But physical education is very different to sport. Physical education provides us the opportunity to develop every young person, and we have to remember every child in our lesson has a responsibility and has an entitlement to learn to be developed in the physical. So for me, we've got to be able to separate what is physical education and what is sport. And through the physical education, we've got to look at, okay, so what are the aims of physical education? It's to equip our young people with a movement competency, movement patterns that they can go on and access any activity they want to do. We've got to give them the ability to strategize, to plan, to be tacticians, to be coaches, to evaluators. We also have a huge opportunity to develop their character. And this is something that we've got a curriculum assessment review going on at the moment, and it's something quite new for the association and the department to be focusing on in terms of the additionality that we get through physical education. So, yes, skill is really important. Yes, the ability to strategize and plan and do all that is important, but actually the development of that young person. And we know that through physical education, we have that opportunity to develop the character, the resilience, the empathy, the leadership skills, the teamwork, the ability to go again. And I don't think there's any other subject in the curriculum that enables that to happen and enables it to happen in a really creative way. And it's not one size fits all. And when we teach a sports-based curriculum, we are tending to teach to one type of personality, and they tend to be probably mini versions of you and me and other people's on the call. Most of us went into BPE teachers because we loved sport, but actually, the research is telling us that there's less than 10% of our young people in our classes that are versions of me and you, that are that sport mindset. So if we're teaching lessons that are sports based, we're talking to 10% of the lesson, not 100%. And that curriculum lesson is around 100% development of every child in that class. And every child comes different shapes and sizes and abilities and special talents. And we've got to be able to foster that. So the role of the PE teacher, I say, is massively changed. It's there to inspire, it's there to get the basics right, to then encourage them to find their thing through our extracurricular opportunities, which may be recreational, but also maybe our sports. And we've then got to make sure we put all children on the right pathway. Because at the end of the day, what I used to say, if a child hadn't found their thing when they left me after at the age of 16 or 18, I'd failed them.
Mm.
But that thing may have changed. For me, when I was a young teacher, that thing was sport. But
Mm.
actually, now I walk in my local community and I see children riding bikes. I see our young adults walking the dog. I see them going to yoga. Yeah, I see that the 10 kids that are still playing for the netball team or the 15 that are still going to the local rugby club or the cricket team, and they found their thing. But if I see a child that I've taught not knowing what to do and not being physically active, I think there was something wrong with my lesson that didn't engage them, didn't inspire them, and didn't encourage them to be physically active. So I think we've got a huge role in understanding the difference between what physical education is and what sport is, and sport is an outcome. And when we talk back to some of the language you use as well, Chris, that games, it's a very traditional approach. It's a
Mm.
games approach to a number of sports, but actually they need the skills to be able to access those. But what about the gymnastics and the athletics and the fitness and all those types of activities? They've got just as much importance. So we've got to make sure every child gets a broad and balanced offer of a richness of activity, a richness of a curriculum that ultimately they'll find the thing that they're going to do for the rest of their lives.
That's a great answer. I'm very passionate. I love that, Kate. I think, I look at pupils that I taught, that are maybe now 30 that I'm following on Strava and, they're doing the park run. One boy used to teach cycled across the Isle of Wight with his girlfriend last weekend. You got others doing HIIT classes. My daughter was home for the weekend and did a reformers Pilates class. I think you're right. It has changed what our young people are going to be doing when they're leaving school and they're 25 and 30. So what would you recommend is covered on a good physical education program, Kate?
So again, a great question, and this is where I'm going to defer to national curriculum because it is that broad and balanced curriculum, and whether you're in a state school and independent school, it's still the offer that you put together. So it's activities, areas of activity. I wouldn't say name sports. So go back to probably how you and I were trained back in the day, and we've got games, we've got athletics, we've got aesthetic activities, we've got aquatic activities, and we've got outdoor and adventurous activities. And I would say every curriculum, a rich curriculum, needs to have all of those activities on. And again, in the state sector, we have Ofsted as our inspectorate, but I know you have your own inspectorates as well. But when we're looking at that curriculum, they've got to make sure it's meeting the needs of every learner. And in the most recent Ofsted paper, dance and OAA were pulled out as areas of activity not taught enough of. And actually, I'm going to go full out here. Outdoor education for me is one of the most important areas of activity that we can teach in a school, particularly when we're looking at transition, because it's not based on excellence, it's not based on prowess and who can do the best skills or who's the fastest runner. This is about you as an individual, and you can really see the types of skills, the type of people that we're working with, and it's a good leveler. So I encourage everybody when you get a new cohort in, start with OAA, make everybody feel comfortable, put everybody outside in a different environment, doing completely different activities, problem solving activities, team building activities, where they're not judged on the level of skill they have got, but you're making them feel welcome. And for us, the whole work around physical literacy has started to really impact on, okay, what is the PE experience like? And I go back to some of the lessons that I used to teach, and I'm thinking, crikey, was it a positive experience for every young learner in my class? Absolutely not. I think about some of the cross country runs we used to go and do, and we used to run along the sand dunes and along the beach. And I'm thinking, is this really what people are remembering of physical education? Is this the memory that they've got in, and then the PE kit was not like it is today. So for me, it's making sure that we're not specific around a sport, but we've got a real variety of activity where we're giving them the movement patterns and the skills to be successful, which then they can go on and transfer how to outwit an opponent in netball, into hockey, into basketball, into football, into rugby. But we're not doing blocks of work, long blocks of work. That actually, if a child doesn't engage in, let's say, rugby in week one, and you're doing it for 16 weeks, how's that child going to feel 16 weeks later? Are they going to be the school refuser? Are they going to be the child that doesn't come to PE that's suddenly switched off because we're throwing in them a sport? So for me, again, it's not only just around breadth of activity and making sure we've got that broad range, but what we actually teach in the lesson and making sure that we're not teaching full versions in the lesson. We're teaching small versions of the games, little activities, 2v3s, 5v5s, and then building up to that bigger experience in the extracurricular clubs, in those sports clubs, when we've got the children who want to take them to the next level there and then can go on and progress. Because it's got to be that really engaging environment where everybody feels welcome, but actually everybody feels they're progressing. So come back to what I've just said around the range of activities. This then for me goes into, well, what is the important aspect of a physical education lesson? And this then for me focuses on, well, what is the purpose of physical education? Yes, it's through the physical, but it's not around performance. You are not here in your PE lesson to create the next Olympic athlete. That will happen because that child is going to an external club, has got a coach, has got a passion, has got a team of parents behind them that are desperate for them to go and do their thing. What we've got to remember is the PE lesson is the opportunity to develop the whole person, the cognitive skills, the social skills, the emotional skills alongside the physical. And if we can start to put that lens into PE, you will get more children engaging in physical education, engaging in your lessons, and then ultimately finding their thing. And Leeds Grammar School have done some great work around physical literacy and understanding movement patterns. And actually, got some great case studies how they've taken young boys, year nine, who were completely switched off from physical education because it was a sports-based approach in their lesson, flipped it onto the real focus on the individual, looking at some of the movement patterns and looking at that physical literacy experience. Those children re-engaged in PE, started to come to extracurricular clubs, and now are actually representing the school in some sports. So you can see by investing in the young person, taking a holistic approach, will still achieve the same outcome that you probably intended for some of your young people, but have gone about it in a more personalized approach as opposed to we're a sport it's a sports lesson. We're going to deliver this, and it's about me being able to select my 15 that are going to represent the school on a Saturday morning. So I think it's kind of flipping the lens and being comfortable in flipping the lens. But again, I think it goes down to accountability in the school from the head teacher, making sure head teacher that you're judged as taking everybody into that experience.
I agree so much with that, Kate. And the best independent schools I've been to recognise that actually physical literacy and outdoor education is both enhancing their PE program, but also is enhancing their wider program, as you said, because of the skills that they get taught through that, and they recognise that, and that transfer of skill, I think, it has been fantastic in those schools I've been to. My last question then would be, Kate. Let's say I'm a new director of sport, an experienced director of sport, and I'm trying to persuade my head that we should have physical education on the curriculum, and obviously, therefore, by definition, it's got to take the place of something else. Or maybe I'm a director of sport that already has a physical education program, but I want to update it and improve it. What advice would you give to them when going to see their head about implementing a new program?
So I think first you talk around physical education and not sport, really trying to get the right language going. But for me, it's making sure they understand the connection between research and research informed physical education. And there's so much out there at the moment in terms of what we're doing in the National Curriculum Review here with the Department for Education in terms of why we need to change the curriculum, because it's not the links between physical activity and brain development, the links between physical activity and academic achievement
Yeah,
are there.
yeah,
So it's making sure the head teachers understand this. But it's also these children are, we've got to look at the state of the nation at the moment in terms of the screen time, the lack of physical activity levels, the lack of opportunity for some of these children beyond the school day. And school is the only guaranteed time that we can make them physically active because they're with us. So let's use that time sensibly to make sure that the curriculum time is used appropriately, that you are making sure you're developing every child, but actually you're talking to your head teachers around the power of the subject. And if you look at some of the research that is there, from particularly from Leeds Beckett University, Loughborough University, Youth Sport Trust, there's so much out there around the connection between the amount of physical education time, the amount of physical activity time, and those wider academic achievements of a school. And you'll get a happier school. We know we're built
yeah.
to move. You know you're going to get higher engagement in lessons if children are moving and they're physically active. So for me, I wouldn't just focus on the PE lesson. I'd think about active lessons in terms of your other curriculum subjects, but also movement time, downtime, making sure there's opportunities for children to be physically active around the school day because it does stimulate the endorphins, it does get them moving and does inspire them a little bit more as well. So I don't think it's just about the PE lesson, but if you're wanting to improve your PE, absolutely get the links with research in there.
I was actually just speaking to Head this morning, and he said exactly the same thing. We talked about all those, but he said, "Look, it makes a happier school." And just to add to what you said there, Kate, School Health Pulse, as I said to you earlier, doing some fantastic research around this that I think can benefit directors of sport. So, thanks very much for that, Kate. Your passion is amazing, and if we've got a CEO like you with that much passion driving our physical education in schools forward, we're in a good place. So again, thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at our PADS conference in March.
Thanks for having me, Chris, and good luck to you all at the start of the academic year and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing things. So thanks for having me.